Live well. Lighting for people with sight loss. Presented by Antony Horner, Site Airedale, on the 24th of February 2022. About Live Well. Live Well is a series of events aimed at helping people make the most of life with sight loss. Live Well is a collaborative project between 6 local independent sight societies. Sight Advice South Lakes, Cumbria. My Sight's Knots, Nottingham. Site Airedale, in the Airedale area of North and West Yorkshire. Support for Sight, in Mid and West Essex. Sutton Vision, in the London Borough of Sutton. And Outlookers in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire.
So, welcome everybody to the Rainbow Group, as we call ourselves. This is a Future Vision presentation by Antony Horner, who works at Site Airedale up here in Yorkshire. He's going to do, and this won't be the easiest presentation, he's going to do lighting on Zoom. So, but what will be more interesting will be how Antony explains angling and using the light if you can't, if you have no screen. But Antony's going to go through everything, I'm sure, from a bulb to using smart lights as well. So, okay, over you go, Antony. Over to you. Thank you.
So I'm Antony Horner, and I'm from Site Airedale in Heathley in West Yorkshire. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about why lighting is so important for people who have sight loss. Lighting gives us a sense of well-being. And just by changing the lighting in the room, changes how we feel. So, for example, cool white lighting makes a room feel cold and clinical, whereas warm to yellow to red lighting makes us feel warm and cozy. And interior designers will spend a lot of time tweaking the lighting in the room to get exactly the effect and exactly the feel that they desire. But for people with sight loss, lighting will help you make the most of what sight you have. You don't need to hire an interior designer or start changing your electrics or even buying expensive lights. Just by understanding some basic lighting principles, you can help improve the lighting in your home. So in this talk, I'm going to talk a bit about the benefits of good lighting. I'm going to go over the lighting terminology. So, what are Kelvins and lumens and watts. The different lighting technologies that we have in our homes. How we manage daylight. How to choose the right light for the job. And also smart lights. So why is good lighting important? Well, good lighting, probably the most important reason for good lighting for people with sight loss is the fact that it will help you make the most of what sight you have. Also, as human beings, we feel better if we're in a well-lit environment. We don't like to be in dark and gloomy environments. We like to be in a bright, airy environment, and lighting helps that. It's also important for moving around and safety. So it makes sense that the better the lighting is, that you can see obstacles, stairways need to be well lit and that kind of stuff. So let's have a look at some of the lighting terminology. So the first thing that most people will be familiar with will be the term watt. And watt refers to the amount of electricity that a light bulb uses. Traditionally, though, when we used to use the old incandescent light bulbs, we would use it as a description of brightness. So you would typically buy a 40-watt bulb, a 60-watt bulb, and a 100-watt bulb. However, with modern energy-saving light bulbs, watt doesn't really make a very good description of brightness, because a modern LED light bulb can use as little as 6 watts. But that 6 watts doesn't relate to how bright the bulb is. So since 2010, it's been a requirement that light bulb manufacturers put the amount of brightness of a bulb as lumens on the packaging. And lumens, which is short for luminous flux, if you want to be posh, is written as LM, and it's basically refers to an indication of brightness. So the higher the number, the brighter the light, and the lower the number, the darker the light. So for example, a traditional 60-watt bulb would be 800 lumens, and a 100-watt light bulb would be 1,600 lumens. Another thing to think about with light is the color temperature, and this is measured in Kelvin. And basically, as light changes, so light, the lower the number, the lower the Kelvin, the lower the color temperature, the warmer, more orange and yellow light is. And the higher the color temperature, the cooler, more blue light there is. And this sort of, you adjust the color temperature depending on what you're going to be using the light for. So another example, a candle is around 1,800 Kelvin, whereas a sunny day at noon is 5,600 Kelvin. So now let's look at some of the technology, the lighting technology that we find in a typical home. So we're all familiar with the traditional incandescent light bulb. These were phased out in 2010 for more energy efficient technologies. However, it is likely that some people will still have a few of these knocking around at home. They produce a warm yellow light, which people find very comfortable. However, that lighting isn't very good for color reproduction or contrast. And one of the reasons that these bulbs are so inefficient is that most of the energy they use is actually expanded in heat, and they did used to get very hot. So you didn't really want to get too near them. The next lighting is halogen. Halogen uses less energy than the traditional incandescent light bulbs. However, these days there were newer, more efficient lighting technologies available. They have a bright, warm light, which is better for contrast. However, they do get extremely hot. So if you have one in a desk lamp, you really don't want to get near it. And if you stand under them, you can often feel the heat coming from them. As with the old-fashioned incandescent light bulbs, halogen light bulbs are gradually being phased out. So the next technology is the compact fluorescent lamp. And these are the weird-shaped light bulbs. And they were really the original energy-saving light bulb. A lot of people got these free either from their electricity company or, people at one point were handing them out in the street. They produce a bright white light, which is good for task lighting. However, one of the downsides of them is that it can take a while for them to reach full brightness.
Yes.
You can buy ones that will reach full brightness quicker. You need to check that on the packaging. But what this means is it means that they're not really suitable for an environment where you need instant lighting. For example, in stairways, you don't want to be having to wait for a light to reach full brightness. Another thing with these lamps is that they don't like the cold. So if you have one of these in a porch or in a cold environment, you will find it takes quite a long time to reach full brightness, and it might not even reach full brightness. Not all of them are dimmable, but some of them are. So you need to check on the packaging that the bulb you're buying is a dimmable light bulb. They also, one of the disadvantages of them as well is that they also contain mercury vapor, which is poisonous. This isn't a problem while the bulb's intact. As long as the bulb isn't broken, this mercury isn't a problem. However, if it is broken, this vapor will be released into the room. And therefore, it's best, if you break one of these, you need to well ventilate the room and perhaps leave the room for an hour or so to let this vapor disappear. It also means that they have to be recycled properly. You can't just put them in your household rubbish. So now we come on to LED lighting or light emitting diodes. LEDs are rapidly becoming the dominant lighting technology. They're efficient and they're long-lasting, and they have a wide variety of applications. You can get fittings that will fit fluorescent tubes, the long fluorescent bulbs. You can get them in a wide variety of light fittings. You can buy quite a few lamps now that have the LEDs built in, and these will often be adjustable, so you can adjust the brightness or the color temperature of the light. And LEDs that are available in a wide variety of brightnesses, colors, and color temperatures. One of the benefits of them as well is that they don't get hot. So if you're using a lamp, if you're using an LED in a desk lamp, it means you can get near to the light without burning yourself. And obviously, that makes things a lot safer. However, not all of them are dimmable. So you need to check on the packaging that the bulb you're buying is dimmable. And also, not all of them will work with existing dimmer switches. As I mentioned earlier, the old incandescent light bulbs typically used around 60 watts of electricity. An LED light bulb only uses around 6 watts. And the dimmer switches which are designed for incandescent lights may not go down to the lower wattage that's required for an LED bulb to work, or an LED bulb to dim. The bulb will come on, but it won't dim. It will just come on at full brightness. And then finally, we've got daylight. Daylight really is the best type of light. As human beings, it is very important that we have access to daylight. We need daylight for our body's rhythms. It's important for our mood and our well-being. When people don't have access to enough daylight, they can suffer from depression, anxiety, and other, difficulty in sleeping. So, and also windows give us a connection to the outside world. And this is especially important for people who spend a lot of time indoors. However, it's important that we manage daylight. So one of the things that you can do is maximize the light entering the window. So opening curtains, removing any objects which may be obstructing the light coming in. So maybe cutting down shrubbery and that kind of thing. Opening curtains and removing net curtains can help increase the amount of light that comes in. Using vertical blinds. Vertical blinds allow you to adjust the direction of the light coming into the room. So you can move it and sort of direct it to where you want. When you're buying a vertical blind, you need to consider the fabric. Some fabrics are very thin and will still let quite a lot of light through. At the other end of the spectrum, there's blackout fabric, which will actually block all of the light. It's also important to keep your windows clean. If there's dirt, smudges, smears on the window, this will all scatter light, and as a result, will increase the amount of glare. How should we arrange our furniture in the room to make the best of daylight? Well, seating should either be side onto a window or with the window behind you so that the window is shining onto any task that you're doing. Also, think about how the sun is going to come into the room. Is it going to reflect on anything inside the room, or is it going to reflect on anything outside? It may be that the sun doesn't directly come into the room. However, it reflects off a neighbour's window and then shines into your room. What you want to do is you want to avoid the sun shining directly onto your face. And if you're not quite, if you don't know where the sun is going to appear in your room, then there are apps available on the iPhone. Well, in this case, I've used the iPhone and the iPad. And there's an app called SunPath. And what you can do is you can use that to look up your property on Google Maps, and then it will superimpose a chart showing you where the sun is going to be at different times of the day, both during the summer and the winter. So how should we position TVs and computer screens? So ideally, we should position them side on to the window or on the opposite wall, so that your back is facing the window. You should use blinds to control the light that's coming in. And you should never place a computer screen or a TV in front of a window, so that if you're trying to watch TV, you've got the window behind you, because this will make it very difficult for your eyes to actually adjust to actually see the image on the TV screen. However, if this is unavoidable, then you should use blackout blinds to actually block the light out while you're using the screen. So now let's look at choosing the right light for the job. So basically, there are two main types of lighting. There is ambient lighting, and that is the light that's all around us. So that can be both daylight and it can be artificial light. And there is also task lighting. And this is light to be used for carrying out specific tasks. In reality, you will have a mixture of both types of lighting in your room. You'll have ambient lighting to give you general lighting, and you will have task lighting to light up, a task that you're doing. So let's have a look at lighting temperature. So as I mentioned earlier, lighting temperature is how warm or cool the light is. Warm lighting gives the room a cozy, warm feel. However, the disadvantage of it is that it provides poor colour reproduction and poor colour contrast. It's very good for rooms such as bedrooms and living rooms. However, if you're going to be reading in your bedroom, or if when you open your wardrobe door and you want to see your clothes and you want to see what colours you're picking out, it's best to use cool task lighting for that. And again, if you're in the living room and you're reading, a small reading lamp which has a cool colour temperature will help you read more comfortably than trying to use yellowy light. At the other end of the spectrum, we have cool lighting. And cool colour temperatures provide better colour reproduction and better colour contrast. However, the downside of it is it can feel quite cold and clinical. So it's best suited to rooms where you're actually working in and you're actually doing tasks, such as kitchens and bathrooms and workrooms. It's also worth using hook lighting in stairways to maximize the amount of contrast. So now let's look at some different types of light that we'll have in our home. So most rooms are fitted with a ceiling pendant lamp. So you have one light in the center of the room. These provide nice bright light in the center of the room, but as you move out, it does get darker around the edges of the room. So there's two things that you can do with this. You can either add an extra light fitting to the ceiling, or you can use a light fitting with multiple bulbs, which can help spread the light. However, if you're choosing a light fitting with multiple bulbs, you need to make sure that it's got a shade on it which will conceal the bulb. And you need to think about the lampshade that you're buying. If the lampshade has thick, solid walls, then it will mainly direct the light down to the center of the room rather than letting it spread to the edges of the room. The best type of lampshades are actually the paper ball lampshades. These do two things. They diffuse the light and allow it to spread evenly around the room, and they also hide the bulb. And this is perhaps the most important thing with any lighting, is you don't want to see the bulb. So next, let's have a look at wall lights. Wall lights can cause glare if the bulb is visible. So the best type of wall light is one that has a solid shade and directs the light upwards towards the ceiling. And these work best if you've got light-coloured walls and a white ceiling to reflect off. Now we'll look at spotlights. Spotlights are good for lighting a small area for a specific task. So they're quite good if you want to light up the contents of a cupboard, and they're quite good if you want to light up a piece of artwork or something like that. However, one of the disadvantages of them is that they do have shadows, and that can make it a bit confusing for people if there's a lot of shadows. So it really makes them unsuitable for general lighting. When positioning a spotlight, you need to make sure that it's positioned in such a way that you're not going to inadvertently look at the bulb. If you do use spotlights for highlighting cupboards and surfaces, that kind of stuff, using a ceiling track will allow you to move the spotlight along the ceiling. So as you change the room around, you can actually move the light. And then finally, we've got tables and floor lamps. It's actually better to have more than one source of light in the room. So it's better to have several table lamps scattered around the room rather than just having one central light hanging from the ceiling, lighting up the entire room. When you're buying a table lamp or a floor lamp, you need to think about how you are going to use the lamp. Are you using it for ambient lighting? Or are you using it because you want a reading light, or do you want both? Again, you need to choose a light that you need to make sure that the shade conceals the bulb. So it may be that you need to try this in various positions in the room when you're sat up or whether you're sat down, and just make sure that you can't see the bulb. If you're wanting the light for both ambient lighting and task lighting, then consider a parent and child light. So this is a lamp where you have the main light at the top of the stem, and then around halfway up the stem, there is a smaller reading lamp for reading. So now let's look at task lighting. We'll look at desk lamps, and really when you're choosing a desk lamp, you want one with a cool white or a daylight light bulb. Some of the newer LED lamps allow you to adjust the color temperature and the brightness, so you can actually get it to a level that's comfortable for you. What you need to do is you need to position the head of the lamp below eye level so that the light is actually shining on the task rather than shining on you. And you need to angle the head towards the task. When you position the light either at the side of you, shining on the task, or behind you. Don't put the light in front of you, because then the light will shine in your eyes. If you're doing things like crafts or just doing things like painting nails, that kind of stuff, you can get magnifying lamps, and these incorporate a magnifier into the head. This magnifier is likely to be unsuitable for anything like reading. The level is fairly low, usually around 1 or 2 times magnification. They're available as floor lamps, table lamps, or you can get them with a clamp, so you can clamp them onto a shelf, or you can mount them onto a wall. When we move into the kitchen, one of the best things in the kitchen is under cabinet lighting. And under cabinet lighting should be below eye level, so that it shines on the actual task that you're doing. Under cabinet lighting can either be fitted at the time of the kitchen, so it can be permanent, or you can buy little stick-on LED lights that can stick onto the underside of your cabinet. For areas where it's not possible to have under cabinet lighting, you can buy a portable LED task lamp, which will provide extra light. For cupboards, you can get little LED lights which can be put into a cupboard. What you need to do with these, though, is make sure that they're positioned in such a way that you're not getting glare from the light. So it needs to be pointing into the cupboard. So this is one area where spotlights are quite good. If they're high up and they're pointing into the cupboard and not casting a shadow. Another alternative is to use the head torches, a bit like what miners used to use. They're fairly cheap these days, and they're LEDs, and that can light up the contents of a cupboard or a wardrobe. What about when you're watching TV? So the best thing to do when you're watching TV is make sure that the room is well lit. And you want to have a nice even level of lighting around the room. Ensure that lights don't reflect on the screen. So the easiest way to check for this is to turn the screen off, look at the TV, and if you can see the light being reflected in it, then you need to move it. Ideally, you want a TV with a matched screen rather than a glossy screen, and that will help minimize reflections. If the TV is in a corner, although it will also work if it's behind a flat wall, what can help is placing a light behind the television. So what you need to do is put the light behind the TV so that the TV is hiding the lamp, and all you can see is the light coming from the lamp. And what this does is it helps. It means that your eyes don't have to adjust as much from when you've been looking at a bright, TV or computer screen and then looking at a dark room. And it helps improve the contrast. Well, it helps how we perceive the contrast. It's actually known as bias lighting, and you can buy proper bias lighting kits. For the best result, you really want a daylight bulb behind there. So it's something worth trying and see if that just improves the way you see the TV. So now let's look at glare and reflection. So again, if you wear glasses, as with your windows, make sure that they're clean. When you're outside, consider wearing a peak cap or a sun visor, which will help shade your eyes from the sun. You may want to consider wearing eye shields. Eye shields are larger than ordinary sunglasses, and they're designed to block the light coming from above you and from the sides. They are available in a wide variety of colours, and we often get asked by people what's the best colour for my eye condition. There doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence to say that particular colours are better for certain eye conditions. It's really a case of your own personal choice. So it's a case of trying them out and seeing what works for you. When you're choosing furniture and when you're choosing decorations such as tiles and work surfaces, choose matte surfaces rather than glossy, and that will help reduce the amount of reflection that comes back. For a desk, consider using a desk pad, so you don't get as much glare coming up off a desk. In addition to lighting, contrast is also important, and that helps make items around the home easier to see. So in this picture, we've got a red power socket on a white tiled wall. The tiles are matte, the work surfaces are matte. We've got a white light switch, which is nicely contrasted against a pair of blue tiles. The work surface itself we've got a black half and a white half, and this helps improve the contrast for items. So we've got white items and light coloured items on the black half of the work surfaces, and dark coloured items on the whiter area, and that just makes things a bit easier to see. And you can do this with fruit and vegetables. So if you're cutting something like cauliflower, use a dark coloured chopping board. If you're cutting something like carrots or something like that, use a lighter coloured chopping board and have a contrast between the object that you're using and the background. So now let's look at smart lighting. So what is smart lighting? Smart bulbs are LED bulbs that connect to the internet, and they allow you to control them using your phone, your voice. You can set schedules, or you can use a switch to control them. And they allow you to adjust the brightness, the colour, and the colour temperature. And you can use scenes to control multiple bulbs in your room at the same time. So it may be, that you have a ceiling light and two desk lights. You can set these up so that they will work together rather than, you having to go around and switch them separately. So what are the benefits of them? Well, they allow you to customize lighting to your requirements at that specific moment. So you can change the room lighting depending on what you're doing. So in this example here, I've taken a photograph of my computer in my office at home. When I'm working at the computer, I like to have a white, cool light. In this picture, I've used bias lighting behind the computer screen to make sure that I've got a nice, even level of light in the room where I'm working. However, and this is a cool white light. However, when I'm listening to music in there and I'm relaxing, I want a softer, warmer light. So the second picture shows a more yellow light. Behind the computer screens, I've actually got a red light, which just gives a bit of warmth and atmosphere to the room. And I can do that with just the press of a switch. So I can immediately change how I'm using that room from working mode to relaxing mode. Another benefit is the fact that you can have switches where you need them. So, if you're not restricted to just having the switch on the wall as you're coming through the door. You can also set schedules to turn lights on and off at specific times. So it may be that you want the light to come on at sunset or go off at 11 o'clock at night. So let's have a look at some of the ways we can control lights using smart technology. So one method is to use motion sensors. A motion sensor will detect if somebody comes into the room. So if you've got children who never turn the lights on, never turn the lights off, a motion sensor will detect when they come in and turn the light on. And then when it detects there's been no motion after a while, it will turn the light off. So they're very good for energy saving. They'll also detect if light levels fall below a certain point, so they can turn the light on, and they're intelligent. So they'll turn the light on if it's dark, but they won't turn the light on if it's the middle of the day. Or it may be that you want the light turning on all the time when it gets dark, for example, in a hallway or a stairway. Next option is contact sensors, and contact sensors can fit onto a door or a window. You may already have these as part of your home security system. The ones you have with your home security system won't work with your smart lighting, but it's a similar idea. And they can turn the light on if a door is open. So when you come home, you open your front door, the light comes on. They can also detect vibration. So if somebody knocks on the front door, it can turn the light on in the hallway. You can also add additional switches. So traditionally, if you wanted an extra light switch, you would have to get an electrician in who would have to gouge a channel into your walls, run extra cabling, plaster it, and then you'd have to redecorate. However, with smart lighting, you can use wireless switches. So you can, have the switches where you want them. So it may be that you want a light switch on your headboard, so you can turn the lights on when you're in bed. This particular light switch in this image is actually under my desk at home. So it's a secret switch, which means I can secretly operate the lights from under my desk. And these can be reprogrammed as well if your needs change or you want different scenes. So I can reprogram this at Christmas so it has a Christmas option. And so it gives you that extra flexibility. What to do for further information? Well, a lot of the information I've given today has come from the Thomas Pocklington Guide to Better Lighting for People with Visual Impairment. They go into a lot more depth and a lot more detail than I've been able to go into. So it's worth going over and having a look at their website, which unfortunately isn't very clear on here. For demonstrations of lights and eye shields, your local sight loss charity may be able to help. So now I'll open for questions.
Thank you, Anthony. That was excellent. I've got a quick one before everybody else gets in. I should know this, but I didn't. Bias lighting. Tell me a bit more about that. It's behind the television or behind a computer screen?
Yes. Basically, there's two ways of doing it. I mean, the simplest way is simply just to put a lamp behind there. And what it does is it's to do with how we perceive contrast and how we perceive brightness. So when we have a light object and then we look at a dark background, it takes a while for our eyes to adjust. So if we have a light object behind there, then your eyes don't have to adjust as much. And because it's more even lighting, you perceive contrast in a slightly different way. The ways of doing it are either to use something like you can buy bias lighting kits, or which are basically LED strips which stick to the back of the TV or the computer monitor and reflect off the wall behind it. It's used a lot in video editing and photographic editing because it helps provide a more accurate color rendition.
Okay. So the LED strip lighting you can buy, that's one way of doing it.
Yes.
And the other way, more obvious way, I suppose, if you already have a lamp of some sort, put that behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Right, people. Anybody got any questions? Just...
I think Mark is going to have a question. He unmuted himself already. Marcus.
Oh, hello. Sorry.
I knew you were going to have a question. No worries.
I was just actually going back. It wasn't quite so much the lighting, but the eyeglasses and whether the different colours. You'd said that was a sort of personal preference. That's correct, right? There's no particular correlation for what you should be wearing in a particular?
No, I did quite a bit of research in doing this, and everything that seemed to come across seemed to say that there's not a lot of evidence that there's a particular shade for a particular eye condition.
Yeah.
The manufacturers will tell you that there are shades for particular eye conditions, but the research that I've done seems to suggest that there isn't, and it's more important that you choose for your own preference. However, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but what it is important is to make sure that you buy ones that block blue light, because it's actually blue light that causes the glare.
Okay. And how would you know that? Would it say it on?
It will say it on it, yeah.
Right.
You can go to your local society.
Yeah.
And try them all on, all different colors, and then take something or look at something blue.
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing these yellow ones, which I quite like from as you say, just from a personal preference of what the light does. But I wasn't sure whether they were damaging or whatever.
Before you go in, before you buy or spend any money, try to go into your local one and have try them all on. All the different ones, and ask them if you can pop outside just to have a look outside as well, what they do to you, because obviously you will experience light differently inside the building than outside, but I'm sure your local one would allow you to walk out of the shop.
We always say to people, try and choose a sunny day at home.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to ask your other question, Mark, that you asked me the other day, or not really?
What was that? Sorry, I don't remember.
Stage.
Oh yeah. So I do a lot of. I'm a comedian, so I get a lot of lights on stage, and again, I've been wearing sort of anti-glare glasses, or indeed these ones. They're slightly shaded, and I try not to move as much as possible. I don't know if you had any sort of tips for anything that I could do. So I absolutely realise that's quite a specific question for quite a specific need, but and not so general. But I don't know. Yeah, any notions on that, Antony?
The only thing which probably wouldn't really be acceptable if you're on stage would be to wear like some sort of peak that will help sort of shade your eyes from the light.
Well, we actually, Susie and I discussed that. The trouble with that is that you either end up looking like sort of Bono because you've got once, or you're sort of wearing a peak would obviously help the light, but it doesn't really help the job, because I'm not people obviously, and this in not just being a comic, but in any form of communication, you want to see your eyes.
Yeah, the difficulty is, of course, is that by definition, the light has to be shining on you. It'd be no good sort of lighting around you, because then you just appear as a dark blob in the center of the stage. So really, it's quite a difficult one. I would imagine. I don't know. There may be people who know about stage lighting who might know a better way of lighting.
No, the only thing I said to Mark is that he could maybe think about going on stage before he actually does his gig, and then do a markup with something that he can see, maybe the black and yellow strips or something. So he marks the stage like this is as far as I can go, but not further. Or get a rug, I don't know, that's like a really bright color that you can ask them to put down on the floor. Or something that's a different texture than the stage, so you can feel it with your feet that you are at the edge of your kind of moving space, and don't move any further, because then you're going to fall into your audience lap, which probably they would be happy with that, but you don't necessarily want that.
No.
But other than that, I can't think of anything. But that has to be done before you go on stage.
Yeah.
I used to be a stage light person. Can you believe?
Ooh, there you go. That is your man.
Only years ago, I only did spotlight. But however, as Antony said, by virtue of the job, people have to be lit, and obviously they can change we can change the colours, obviously, whether you want an amber light or a white light or whatever. But which organisation is your nearest? Is it Shoes? Is it?
Yes, it is.
I mean, if they're good enough to lend you 3 or 4 types of the fit over glasses,
try them out.
You never, and try them out. But there's one shade, a newer shade, Boison Berry. You know that one, don't you, Anthony? The Boison Berry one. Have you heard of that one? It's like a maroony one.
I haven't. No.
No, it's something. It's not. It's definitely one. Associated Opticals do it, but there's something about it which is different to the other shades. I don't know what it is. And some people will try the ambers, and they'll do the yellows, and they'll do the greys. Then they put the boson berries on, and there's something about it. So if you get hold of a boson is spelt like poison, but with a B. B-O-I-N.
I got that right. Blimey, that was the best.
Boson berry. It's definitely have a look at those.
I'm just also thinking maybe what you can do is think about the difference maybe that you need. So you need something obviously during the day when you are out, and maybe that would be a totally different that you need on stage. Yeah,
well, that's absolutely right. I mean, I've got now got hundreds of pairs of glasses with different shades, which helps, but it's slightly a lottery as to, especially with British weather or whatever, to come out with the right pair. I'm always constantly got 3 pairs of glasses on me, which is useful and helps. But I guess there's a slight sort of suck it and see element of
sorry, or think about, obviously, as I said, marking out your movement area if you can, as much as you can. Can I say something about you? Is that okay? In the next Mark. Yeah. So everybody, Mark is going to be one of our guests in a couple of weeks' time. He's going to come and do a comedy sketch for us. So please join us the second Thursday in April. Ooh, thank you, Mark. And he's on YouTube and obviously everywhere else. So check him out. He's really funny. So yeah, he's going to be one of our guests. But yeah, I really don't know what else to do with you on the stage other than the head. But that's really not going to be useful.
No, thank you. Those are a couple of little useful tips. Thank you.
Well, let us know if you need anything else. I can always put you in touch with Anthony and Tim as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else has any questions or comments?
Hi, just a couple of small practical questions. I'm completely without sight, but I live with my mum and my aunt, so just home lighting really. And there's just 2 small questions. One is it easy to? You mentioned the lights which have got mercury gas, because my mum will go shopping. So is it easy to? I don't really want to crack one of them open by accident if I bump into it, which hopefully I normally don't. But is it easy to see in the shop which ones they are, so she doesn't buy that?
Yes, the ones that have the mercury in them are compact fluorescent bulbs, and they tend to be a different shape. So they tend to have a long, thin shape to them, or they tend to have like a spiral to them. When she's buying a light bulb, these days the best ones to go for are LED light bulbs, and typically you will probably use things such as the compact fluorescent ones, which have vapor in them. They would tend to be used for more like ceiling lights and that kind of stuff. But really, if you're changing your lighting, you want to go for LEDs. LEDs don't have any toxic gases in them that are really.
They're the ones that you'll probably more likely pick up in B&Q just by picking up whatever. Okay.
Yes.
And the other quick question is, we have in our house, some of the decor in our house is quite old, shall we say, like 80s sort of. And we have lighting. Some of our lights downstairs, they're actually they're not posh chandeliers, but they're kind of 80s chandeliers of some kind with like a fake, glass little beads, and they have quite a few bulbs. So they're sort of candle-shaped luminescent bulbs with a bayonet, but they're mini bayonets. And what do we do with? Are they going to just be phased out? What? How can we get an LED bulb for mini bayonets?
Yeah, you can get LED bulbs in the little handle shapes. You might not be able to get smart LED bulbs, but you will be able to get just standard LED light bulbs. Again, somewhere like being here will be able to have something like that for you.
Okay, that's good. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Pierre. Does anybody else has a comment or a question to ask?
I've got a comment, but can anyone hear me? Oh, can you hear me?
I can. Hello, Janet.
Hello. I have got a comment. In our Chelmsford Broomfield Hospital that I attend, in the eye department, there is a low vision clinic, and I was recommended yellow lenses for indoors over glasses and pink for outdoors. And that was recommended by the low vision clinic itself. Mm-hmm. So that's for macular.
Yeah.
Wet macula.
Do you find that useful, Janet? Have you bought them?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I know you wear the yellow outside, but I didn't know you had the pink one.
Yes, there's a pink. They've got fancy names, something berry, I think. Well, like you were talking about Boissonberry or something just now.
Yeah,
they didn't have that there, but it's more like strawberries or something like that. But they're pink outside and yellow inside.
Okay. The yellow ones do increase contrast, and I know quite a few people who wear them, and also they're quite good for driving because they help with fog and that kind of stuff. So the yellow ones are actually quite good for increasing contrast.
It's good at dawn when you're driving. I just have normal glasses for driving, but I have to wear it. I'm not legally allowed to drive without my glasses on, and they have a yellow tint as well, so it screens the oncoming car's lights as well.
I use yellow fit overs, and my sight's good, but in glare, out of all the ones for driving, it's definitely the yellow ones.
Yeah,
actually, the contrast is excellent, and you're stopping the glare at the same time.
I actually have a thing on my license that I can only drive if I have my glasses on. Not that I would ever get into my car. I wouldn't even find my car without glasses, let alone driving it, to be fair. So that would never happen. Any other question from anybody else or comment?
No, I just thought that was very interesting, Anthony, actually, hearing all, because I haven't bought light bulbs. Because all this modern light bulbs has come since I've had my vision impairment, so I'm fully aware of the old 60 watt and 40 watt. So when I've been trying to buy light bulbs with my magnifier in the supermarket, I found it very, very hard. So it's really interesting to know that it's now a bit more understanding about the lumens and the Kelvins. So forget the watts, isn't it, really?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, actually. So thank you for that. That's really, really helped.
Good.
Thanks, Anthony.
Live Well and Future Vision. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. The Live Well events take place on the second Thursday of each month at 10 a.m. Future Vision sessions take place on the fourth Thursday of each month at 10 a.m. and are technology events aimed at people living with sight loss. To attend the next session or to suggest future topics, please contact your local Sight Society, who will be able to provide you with the Zoom link.